Okay, so next CSP today, financial planning, financial advising, with kind of a broad range of, when we think about financial planning, there's a whole bunch of things that fit underneath that category. So she's going to talk about some of those areas. Erin Ames, former student, current instructor. Which class do you teach?
Retirement planning.
What's the number on it?
Oh, it's 50, 60, and 60, 70 or something like that.
56, 50, 60. Retirement planning, something like that. If you're doing the retirement, or if you're doing the financial planning minor, it's one of the required courses in the minor. If you do all the classes in the minor, you can take the CFP exam. So she'll probably talk about that a little bit, the certified financial planning certification. So we've kind of got it all lined up in terms of the curriculum that you can do that. Lots of opportunities. I just heard a statistic over the weekend. It said there were roughly 100,000 financial planners in the country. There's 130 million households. The majority of folks are not getting advice, are not using a planner, are wandering on their own and could use some help. A huge opportunities in terms of careers. So lots of the ones that are out there, out of that 100,000, a whole bunch of them are older and retiring. And so all the numbers I've heard is great opportunities, great demand that's going to be in this area in terms of financial planning and advising. So I'm just going to say nothing else, hopefully, and turn the time over to Erin. And it'll be fantastic. So we're looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Like he said, I'm Erin Ames, and you have two things going against you today. The first is that I'm an accountant, and the second is that I woke up with no voice. So to prevent me from totally boring you today, I want to get to know you guys just a little bit better. How many of you are freshmen? First semester on campus? Sophomores? Do we have any juniors, seniors? A few of those too. Anybody already know, like, I'm on a fast track, I've got my career all figured out? All here because you're figuring it out? Awesome. This is kind of fun. This is more girls than I've had in any of the classes that I've taught. It's not a super women heavy field.
Yeah, which we're always trying to fix. I don't know, we've got the new club, Women in Finance.
Oh, I hadn't even heard about that yet. That's cool.
Yeah, trying to get more females involved, and the more the better. So
Awesome. Well, I'm a big proponent of that. We'll talk about that a little bit today too. Feel free to ask questions along the way. This can be totally tailored to whatever you have, whatever questions you have, whatever things are on your mind. I'll start by just kind of telling my story, and we'll go from there. So, I'm Erin. This is my little family. And before we get into career or any of that, first off, I'm a human. And I think that's important to take into account when you talk about careers, because having a life outside of your career adds so much to your career. It adds so much to your interview because it gives your interviewers things to remember you by, and adds so much to your career because you're able to relate to coworkers, relate to clients, become more human. That being said, from an accountant, I'm not a super people person, but remembering that you're a human outside of work too. So a little bit about me. I'm a pilot. We have a cute little Cessna 150. I'm on search and rescue, ski patrol. We do any and everything outside. We scuba dive to clean the polar bear tanks at Hogle Zoo. If it sounds dumb and it's outside, we're probably involved in it. When I was 9 years old, I got my first job as a babysitter. The first night, 9's pretty little. So the first night I got pooped on, thrown up like all over, and had to figure out how to put the kids to bed. And it was a disaster. I called my mom in tears and was like, I'm never doing this. I never want kids. I never want to see kids again. I never want anything to do with this. How can I get as far away from kids as possible? And she came over and helped me through it, and we figured it out. And it kind of started me on. That was a big turning point for me when she sat down and talked to me about they had always struggled for money, and money had been a hard thing for them. And I decided that, well, if I was going to ever have a family, if I was going to ever do that, I didn't want money to be a problem. So by the time I was 11, I was babysitting 40 hours a week. By the time I was 14, I had my first full-time nanny gig. So also when I turned 14, that's when you're a freshman in high school, my dad gave me this book called The Motley Fool Investment Guide for Teens. I can't tell you anything that's in it. I don't remember the book at all, but that's when I decided that I wanted a career in finance. I knew I wanted to be mom on a farm, that kind of thing, have no concerns about money, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. And this book changed my mind that money could work for you, that you could have your money do it for you and let you focus on what I wanted. What my big goal was to become a mom on a farm. So I decided as a freshman in high school that I wanted to do something business, something financial. I had some really cool teachers in high school that kind of took me under their wing, got me involved in FBLA, and introduced into the accounting world. So my senior year of high school, I declared my major as accounting, got accepted to the Huntsman School of Business, and started that fall in accounting.
I don't even hold that against you if you're an accountant.
Thank you. Thank you. Ryan's tried hard to pull me over to the finance side, and I never did do finance. I've taken quite a few classes. I was 2 classes short of graduating with a dual major in accounting and finance. But I stayed with accounting. Throughout college, I was worried about paying for college. So as soon as I graduated high school, finished up my nannying gig, I sent the kids back to school that fall and told them I was done, started up at Utah State. I actually started over at Utah State Brigham because I decided to do beauty school all day. I figured if I did a trade school, then I could afford to pay for college. But I fell into college and I loved it, and I knocked it out in a year and a half. So I've never been a cosmetologist. I'm a beauty school dropout. So an accountant and a beauty school dropout, probably as boring as you can get. But graduated high school in 2015, graduated college in 2017. And I jumped right into corporate accounting in Wichita, Kansas. I got the dream position working for Charles Koch. I was in his head office and I did consolidations accounting. So what that is you take, Koch Industries is a company of companies. They own a lot of companies. So everything from cows to oil to fertilizer. And my job was to take everybody's different financial statements and put them all together in one financial statement and tell Charles Koch, this is how much money you made this year. These are your problem areas. And I loved it. What I loved about it was going through the financial statements and seeing, hey, this is a problem area. We need to address this. Hey, this profit margin is crazy. Let's put more energy here. And finding the story. Those financial statements tell a story about a business. They tell you how healthy the business is or how sick it is, what's going on with the business. And I loved coming up with whatever that story was. A few months into my time at Koch, my dad got really sick and he almost died. I got a call from him. They were in the hospital and they were like, hey, we didn't want to bug you, but we thought you should know your dad's not doing very good. And that kind of made me a little uneasy. They were like, well, you're clear across the country, so what were you going to do anyway? You said goodbye before you moved out to Kansas. And I was like, no, that's not how this works. So I moved back to Utah and started my master's degree. That's when I met Ryan and really was just trying to figure out. I went on a leave with Koch and was like, hey, I'm probably coming back. We just need to get my dad better. I don't know. In the meantime, there's a professor at Fairbanks Grange that taught all the financial planning classes. And he was like, hey, I have this old friend that used to work for me. His name's Craig Adams. He'll keep you busy until you figure out what you want to do. So I went and I started with Adams Wealth. So I started as an intern, very much like they were like, hey, we have a couple things that need to be done for the next few weeks. And I was like, great, I want to be here for a few months. And then I'm headed back to Kansas. I love what I'm doing out there. I don't need any of that. In the meantime, started my master's, met Ryan, met a bunch of other people, and had my eyes opened to so many more careers than just corporate accounting that I had always been like hyper focused on. So I explored a PhD route, looked at those options, decided I'm not a good candidate to sit in a room and discuss philosophies and stuff. I do much better like on my own. So fell out of the PhD path, but jumped more onto the finance side, started taking real estate classes, personal financial planning classes, and got my master's in accounting. All through that, I stayed at Adams Wealth. So I kind of graduated from an intern to by early 2018, I got a full-time offer at Adams and had decided to stay there, totally rescinded my time with Koch, and became a financial planning specialist, and then I've worked my way up throughout the company. So I'm now the senior planning specialist kind of over that division and handle all of the technical knowledge side. So we can talk a little bit what financial planning careers look like, and what your different options are. Financial planning is not something I ever thought that I would end up in. Typically, financial planning is known as a very people-based field, a very face-to-face client interaction, kind of a heavy sales role, and that's not me at all. I would much rather hide in the back room and never see another human in my life. So Kansas was a really good fit for me. There's not a lot of humans to run into there. So financial planning really stretched me. As I started in financial planning, the first two things that I learned, I was faced with a really big decision about whether I wanted to go corporate America and see how big, how fast I could make it, because I thought that was the only way to be a mom on a farm with no money concerns, was just make a whole bunch of money and then retire and figure it out at like 35. I don't know, figure out a family then. So that was the corporate America route, or kind of stay the more small town and know that pay is not going to be as good, know that those kind of things. The other thing was dealing with financial planning and figuring out what a broker dealer versus an RIA is. So jumping into that a little bit, a broker dealer is managed by the SEC, so Securities and Exchange Commission, and they have a suitability standard that says you can't hurt clients. Do the best that you can for clients with the best that you know how. And a lot of times that ends up in an insurance role, like a Mass Mutual or a Northwestern Mutual, and you have insurance products that you become a really good expert in those insurance products. And then you have a headquarters or a back office that does all of the planning for you. So can put all of your clients' information down, can take into account how old they are, how much they make a year, how much they save a year, how much they want to spend in retirement. And they put together all the math for you. And then you can recommend these insurance products that can help them. That's what a lot of broker dealers are. You can also do stock picks, so individual stocks and commissions on stocks. I looked into that route, but the pay structure is a lot based on what you sell. Will you please buy this stock? Will you please buy this life insurance? Will you please? And I don't want to ask anybody for anything. So if I don't have to talk to you, that's probably better. So I knew that that wasn't a good fit for me. And I thought that that's all that financial planning was. Some people are very successful and it changes people's lives. Like Ryan said, there's 1.3 million that still need an advisor or something, 130 million households, 100,000 advisors. Like there's a huge need, and broker dealers change lives. Just because you're product based, that's just a different personality. It's a skill set of being able to provide a product to provide that service like that. RIAs are registered investment advisors. It's a different kind of up and coming branch of financial planning, and they're fee based. So you pay a fee for the account that's under management. And so from day one, when the client brings over money, you start collecting a fee on that. And then if you help them, you don't get compensated any extra. If you sell a policy, it doesn't matter. If you buy a new stock, your compensation doesn't change. You just get paid for them being there. So a flat percentage rate per year. When I first heard about that, I thought that was lame because you could get paid for doing nothing. Whereas at least with a broker dealer, you had to do something to get paid. But as I got more into it, I found that the RIA space really was a perfect fit for me, because it allowed my incentives to be aligned with, if I do really good math on the back end and figure out how to incorporate tax planning into their investments and save them a bunch of money that they can reinvest, then I make more money because they put more money into it. And the longer time they're with us, if you have better stock options or better stock picks, I guess, as the accounts go up, your pay goes up. So it was a much less of a sales. You're not trying to get the client to do something. You're trying to get yourself to have better management. And that lined up really well for me and my personality. So 2 factors on that. I went with the RIA route, which is what Adams Wealth Advisors was. So that fit really well for me. And then also they have salespeople and BD people. So I didn't have to do that. I got it kind of more of a back office role where I'm overseeing the plans. We can talk about that in a minute. The other big thing that I had to figure out was if I wanted to go corporate America or small town. I told you that I thought the only way to get to be that mom on a farm was to go corporate America to make really big money. But I also knew that I would probably never get my family if I did that, because I would sit in my corporate office and I'd close my door and I would never talk to another human again. So small town forced me to interact with people. Working with a smaller firm, you have to interact with people. So even as I decided, fine, I'm going to leave Wichita and I'm going to come back to Utah, I looked at Goldman, I looked at Mass, I looked at Northwestern Mutual, I looked at a lot of really big financial planning companies and was like, well, what's a better fit for me? And I ended up picking a small town company because I wanted to know all of my coworkers and all of my clients. With that, there's probably fewer resources that we have than a bigger company. There's not like necessarily benefits don't always come with that. Lower pay usually comes with that, but the personal life payoffs were worth it for me in that corporate America versus small town decision. So kind of where I've ended up and what I do, income longevity planning. So you want to live on 200,000 a year? Great. What do we need to do? What resources do we need to have in hand before? And what choices do we need to make every year to make sure that that 200,000 will always be there? Corporate structure analysis. Great. You're a business owner. You have this company that does this and this one that does this and this. Well, what if we change the parent companies and change structure around? Can we just save enough tax that you have a return on investment just in tax savings because you changed who owns what and how money flows through to you? I love doing that because it doesn't really change their life at all. It changes a couple papers and we can change significant tax savings. Estate tax and legacy planning. This has kind of become a huge passion area for me, focusing on what legacy are you leaving? Money is only worth like so much. What's the story you're trying to tell with your money? What are you getting down to that? What are the estate documents that you need to have in place? What choices can you be making with your kids and finances now to get there? And how do we avoid estate tax? Right now, if you go above about $26 million, and you have to give 40% to the government. So how can you be a multi-hundred millionaire and not have to give it all to the government? Tax planning kind of plays into all of that, but what can we do with the money that you're already receiving to receive it in a more efficient manner to pay less tax? And insurance planning, not just as in like, do you have life insurance? Do you have this? But have you put a pool in your backyard? That might negate your homeowner's policy. So let's go through and look at, make sure your homeowner's policy still covers. Let's make sure your property and casualty insurance still covers you. Do you have an umbrella policy? All of those kind of, you've built this nest egg, now how do we protect it? So that's kind of my job and what I do now. I'm getting less and less client interaction because that's what I like. I like meeting with the clients less and less, and I'm becoming more and more of a mentor just to the other people in my firm. So when they have a client that they don't know how to address the situation, they come and ask me, hey, do you know what a Section 475 corporation is? How do we set up a day trading account? Or how do we do those kind of things for clients? That's kind of become my specialty, my expertise. In the past, I've had a lot of hands-on meetings with clients and walking them through this. If you have a really complicated situation, I'm still the one you'll meet with at Adams Well to go through how to play all the math together. And then once we figure out the business seller, kind of that complicated event, I'll probably step out and let someone else take you to lunch and give you birthday cards and take care of you. And I'll just show back up again when you need more hard math done. But that's kind of where I've ended up. Any questions to this point on financial planning industry or my job specifically or anything else? Yeah.
In that corporate restructuring, where has your CPA like been used? Right?
Yeah, good question. So a couple things with that. Credentials were a big deal to me because I am very passionate about learning, very passionate about kind of being an expert and being in the know and that kind of thing. So for personal fulfillment, it's been a big one. But in addition to that, your CPA dives so much into finance, it kind of surprises you. So there's 4 tests when you take your CPA. I'll jump right to that one. When you take your CPA, you have to have 120 credit hours in your undergrad or in your schooling, which works out very easily to a master's in accounting. You can add on the specialty in financial planning. I looked at doing my master's in finance after talking with Ryan. I would have had to take extra classes, so I didn't do that. I did my master's in accounting. And then it's 4 4-hour tests. So one test is on financial accounting and reporting. That's like the government standards for charities, for nonprofits, for how you want your books done. That helps me in my career because I can take business owners' financial statements and I can look through them and I have a really good understanding of what does this EBITDA mean and are they having any depreciation errors? Is there depreciation they're missing out on? What's kind of the health of the company just from their financial statements? That test was really good at going into depth on that. Business and economic concepts is another 4-hour test that you have to take. That's just about the state of the economy. That's kind of like a finance 101 CPA test. So they break down all of your price earnings ratios, I don't even remember all of them anymore. All of the finance things you need to know. That's what BEC is. And then regulation is tax. What are the tax concepts you need to know? And I use tax planning every single day. People call me all the time for tax ideas. And then the fourth one is audit. And I personally felt like that test was totally useless for me. It's something that I don't like. I don't care if the government wants it to look like this. If I did the math right, why do they care what format it's in? So audit has done nothing for my career other than like, I can do hard things. But the other three I use in my daily job all the time. Do you have to have your CPA to be a financial planner? Absolutely not. But it's something that in my kind of spin-off where I like to be the expert, it helps me a lot. Probably more than you wanted, but there's that answer. Other questions? Okay, on that note, a couple other certifications that I got. I got my certified estate planner credential. This one is a really easy one. A lot of credentials that you get in industry, you have to have so many experience hours, or you have to have so many hours working underneath somebody with the same credential. As of right now, your certified estate planner doesn't have that. So if you're really wanting to get into financial planning and it's really competitive and you're wanting to get something that could set you apart, this is a really good one, because the only thing that you have to do for your certified estate planner, they'll mail you like a 4-inch thick textbook that you can read or not read. They don't care if you read it, but it has everything you need to know to pass a 1 hour, 120 question proctored exam. By proctored, it means that somebody needs to be in the room and verify that you didn't cheat. So I had my boss, I just told him one Friday afternoon, hey, I'm taking this test. Watch me. And that's how you, and then he signs a paper that's like, she didn't cheat, and you mail the test back in and they grade it and you get the credential if you pass. So in terms of like credibility throughout industry, it's not the most like, oh, I want to go meet with a CEP. I'm pretty sure that no one has ever Googled that ever. It's not that well known, but it is a really low barrier to entry certification that you guys could get if you're trying to set yourself apart, or if you really want to get into estate planning. I'll be honest, I did not read the entire 12-page textbook, but the estate planning course that Utah State teaches preps you really well for it. So that's a test that you could pay. It's a couple $100 and just take that test at the end of your estate planning course from Utah State and probably pass that. And then you have some credentials after your name when you're looking at resumes or job applications. The CPA, we talked about how to get that. You do need 2,000 hours of experience underneath another CPA. That's a little bit harder to just kind of knock out during school. I started my master's I started it in 2018. I took my CEP test. So I started in August of 2018. I took my certified estate planner test in November, my first CPA test in December, my second CPA test in January, my next one in February, and my last one in April. And then I finished the year with my CFP in July. If you're an accounting personality and you're more boring than like a stick in the mud and you do nothing but like study, that's totally doable. If you want to have any life and show up to things like Christmas, Father's Day, things like that, I don't recommend that. It was horrible. But you can knock it all out like that. Certified financial planner was the last one that I got. Compared to the CPA, I thought it was a lot easier. The CPA breaks it into 4 tests. So they go really deep because there's a test on each topic. So it tests really deep into each area of knowledge. The CFP is 1 6-hour test, and the hardest part is sitting still for 6 hours. I'm not good at that. But it's 8 topics. It's so broad that they don't go super deep. So if you have a general understanding of financial planning, if you've taken the classes at Utah State, it's probably prepared you really well to be able to answer the conceptual questions on financial planning. The certified financial planner is kind of an industry standard for a qualified financial expert. So if you're wanting to get into the CFP field or do any financial planning type activity, the CFP is getting more and more important. Yeah. I did not. So I came home from Kansas and I started end of 2017 working at Adams. And that's when I even learned about the financial planning major, and I wanted nothing to do with it. So I got my CFP July of 2019. So I'd been working for 2 years in financial planning before I had it. Good question. Thank goodness, no. Do them while you're in school mode and then never sit down for another 8-hour, 6-hour, whatever test again in your life. You do have to stay up to date with continuing education. So you have to turn into the state board. Hey, I went to 6 hours of accounting classes this year, and you have to get like 24 hours for your CFP and your CPA, and the certified estate planner is 12 hours. So every year of just turning in. But if you're involved in your field, chances are you're learning and you're going to classes and you're going to workshops and things anyway. So it's not too hard to stay up on your licensing. Good question. Other questions? If I were to kind of sum it up, probably the biggest thing that's been successful for my career hasn't actually been, as we just talked about, all of the credentials and all of the study and all of that. They've been important and they've helped a lot with the speed of my progression throughout. Adams Wealth is I've gone from intern to manager pretty quick, but the biggest things I think have been a passion for life and a love for learning. When you're involved in life and a love to learn, love to dive in, it kind of spills off into the company. So you'll get really involved in the company and kind of become an integral part. And once you have processes that you're the center of, it gives you really good job stability. Having a life outside of work makes you relatable to your employees, having to your coworkers, to your clients. It makes it easier to meet people. It provides other job opportunities. There was a long time that I didn't know if Adams was really where I wanted to be. So as I got my CPA, it was like, well, this just opens doors. I could do a lot of things with my CPA. My CFP was more Adams specific. This helps me work here. My CEP was more Adams specific, but the CPA just opens general doors. When you have hobbies, you're meeting other people. You're meeting people that might be in your industry that might understand you, and it could be a good opportunity to kind of jump careers or jump companies if you're looking to grow in your career that way. Another thing that was big for me was having businesses outside of work. And it's kind of a pain when you're in the financial sector because you usually have to get every outside business activity approved to prove that you're not trying to like swindle clients on the side or do things like that. But especially as I was going through college and learning the material, having side businesses, buying real estate on the side or starting companies on the side helped me really apply what I was learning. And as you go to a job interview and you can talk with them using real accounting words because you've seen a corporate tax return or you've seen how different processes work, you really understand financial statements because you had to prepare them for your own business. That was huge for me in landing. I had a ton of job offers when I graduated college because I knew what I was talking about in meetings, and that helped me a lot. And kind of the last thing, they wouldn't pay you to work at a job if it didn't suck a little bit. That's why they pay you. So find something you love, find all of that, but at the end of the day, find a why. Why are you working? What are you working towards? Why are you trying to grow or develop, whatever your why is? That's probably been my biggest thing for growth in my career, is kind of working more towards that. A mom on a farm is a big why for me, being able to work into a career that allows me to still stay professional, but be able to start that chapter of my life. Questions?
Talk about some of the different roles in terms of just even in Adams. So
Yeah.
yours is different than the person that's kind of client side versus maybe someone that's selling more. Just can you talk through some of those different roles at Adams?
Yes, Adams has a ton of different positions, which is kind of cool from a career. That was something that I learned at Coke, was if you started a company that has a lot of different areas, it lets you continue to learn and grow throughout your career because you're not stuck in one branch throughout. So probably the most public facing role at Adams is our relationship management and business development. It's their job to go meet people. They go skiing, they find people, they bring them into the office, they tell them what we do. After they bring them on as a client, they become a relationship manager. Relationship managers take them to lunch, tell them happy birthday, remember when their granddaughter's birthday is, all of those relationship management, building that relationship. Those roles are usually very sales heavy, and compensation usually is tied to how well are you bringing clients on. Then there's more back office roles like planners, and their compensation is based more on, are you keeping clients here? How well is your client retention? What kind of changes have you made for clients? Because if you save a client $1 million in taxes, that probably goes a lot further than a lunch in some regards. So it's more on longevity and bringing people there. We also have a pretty strong tech arm. So we've built our own trading software, our own like financial client facing website for them to see in our own apps. So that fintech branch has been really big. We have a private equity department that sources private equity companies to buy into. So public equity is like the stock market. Private equity is like a mom and pop shop or has grown from that, a bigger company that isn't publicly traded. It's not on the stock exchange. You have to know somebody to get into it. And they kind of source those deals. We have a real estate division that has created a real estate fund and sources those real estate deals, like real estate private equity. We have a strictly investment-based team that spends all day researching stock markets, researching the economy, coming up with a trading strategy. What are the investments that the clients are going to be in? When do you change that? What are the different models? So not just stock positions, but like options, derivative, volatility fund, hedge fund strategies, all of that. So there's all kinds of jobs at Adams with varying degrees of client facing, and compensation usually lines up with whatever your goal is. So the investment team's compensated when portfolios grow, private equity's compensated when there's big buyouts or sellouts, mergers and acquisitions within that. Planners are compensated for keeping assets at the firm, and BD is compensated for bringing money to the firm. Yeah. Yeah, good question. At the end of the day, the person, like somebody owns the corporation. So it's going to come down to, the conversations are surprisingly not that different. It more just comes in levels of complexity. So you've worked a W-2 job your whole life. It's, I have this money. I can't change how it comes in because my employer just gives it to me. So I can't do a ton of tax. Like there's some tax planning, there's some, but there's not a lot of structure change or anything like that. It's the goal with here now is how can we get this income to continue for your entire life, even when you're done reporting to said employer. And then from there it grows. If you're a small business owner, it's probably you're the only one that's involved. So we can change the structure of the company and we can change all that to when you get up to a corporation, something bigger. It's, well, how do your health insurance benefits play in, and what kind of, do you have a 401k, do you have an ESOP, what's your exit strategy, how are you taking care of employees, what's your compensation structure, are employees being compensated for what they're doing? Just like within Adams, BD gets compensated for bringing money in, we get compensated for keeping money there, investments get compensated for bringing it. What you're compensating for people for what you want them to do. So we'll look at organizations and make sure that compensation's all aligned. That's kind of it, just the topics of conversation change, but at the end of the day, you're still working with humans and figuring out what goals do those humans have and how do you make those happen? Yeah. Good question. Adams is actually pretty accountant heavy, which is really unique. All of our hires lately have been finance majors, which makes more sense for finance. The business development side have any degree. Business development is knowing how to connect and relate with people. One of our planners has a communications degree, so it can be done. He had to work a whole lot harder to get the CFP, to get those certifications, because he had to get the whole finance background to come over. So it's not nearly as degree specific, but if you're trying to be like the ideal candidate, finance and accounting are probably your two top. Accounting helps more on the planning side, and finance helps more on the investment and talking to client side.
Day in the life, how much time, you're obviously in the back office more, so on spreadsheets, on phone calls, what's a normal day look like for you?
Yeah, good question. I work a lot of hours because I still have a lot of clients too. So I have quite a bit of email, text. I have a work phone and clients text me all the time, call me all the time. The hard part with that is that weekends, evenings, holidays, that's when people have time to sit down and look at finances. So I'm in finance. I have those bank holidays and things like that off, but the client side of things, they still reach out, they still talk to you, and big meetings, I can schedule that and say, you know what, let's talk about this next week. We'll go through your whole plan. Little questions I answer all the time over phone calls, texts, emails, that kind of thing that just come on my cell phone at all times. But then as far as like what I do when I'm at work, a lot of time mentoring and teaching other employees, kind of being a resource for the firm, which a lot of that comes from spending hours researching and staying up to date on topics and finding podcasts and finding research articles and spending a lot of time in IRS tax code, getting to know what they are. So when those questions come, I know what's coming at me. A lot of time in Excel. Excel and I are really tight. A lot of time building out those modeling and projecting. We have softwares, we have all of that, but I like to hand do all of my math and then plug it in the software and make sure that it makes sense. So a lot of my Excel is probably self-imposed, but I spend a lot of time there, and I probably have 3-ish client-facing meetings a week. So some of that back office work is prep for those meetings. A lot of that I've kind of pushed off to other people in the firm that help me with the prep for that, and it's just researching and staying up on tax code and stuff like that.
What other software do you use besides Excel?
Money Guide or eMoney is a big one that we use for clients. There is like a eMoney certification for students that you can get. That's another big thing if you're really trying to get into financial planning. That's free. You can just do their little class that they have and become like a eMoney certified planner. That helps so that you know how to use the software. Chances are when you start with a financial planning firm, you'll start by just like entering client data and kind of spitting out those plans. That's probably the number one way that I train is, here's a person, you go put it all in the software, and then you can come in my office and I'll walk you through, well, how would you handle this situation, or how would you handle this? And then we'll go through the different ways to model and look at that. The tech side uses a lot of like Python and other, I don't even know all of their language things that they use, those softwares.
Anything you wish you would have, or you didn't get? I mean, you obviously had lots of schooling, lots of other education things, certification. You were very motivated. Was there still something you thought, gosh, I wish I would have had more of this, or this was an area once you got there that you realized you were maybe needed some more help in? I mean, did you know, like, just imagining the time when you graduated, we didn't have tons of Excel classes. I mean, we do more now, I think, in Excel and in other different software programs, but I mean, did you just fill that gap on your own in terms of Excel and then figure it out, or what, did you do something else?
A lot of that, and actually, I'm like a pretty loyal accountant, very much identify as an accountant. But in my master's program, I took quite a few of the graduate level finance classes, and they're a lot more Excel based and taught me the VBS and all of that kind of, is it VBS? Yeah, all of that side of Excel and really getting to know the software well. And then it was just start planning for my own life and start planning, how can I start playing with the software on my own? But I probably not regret. The only thing I do different is I graduated from college at 19, and you have the rest of your life to be an adult. There's no hurry to like grow up and get the dream job. So sometimes that's felt like a little restrictive and a little trapping to be like, well, I can't leave and go work in Alaska for a summer because I have the dream job. I can't leave that now. So make sure you use your time in college to study abroad and go do that trip and do those things, because after you graduate college, you can be an adult for the rest of your life. And I love my life and I love where I'm at, but graduating college comes with responsibility. Yeah. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, what is like your work schedule like? Because like investment bankers, they work heavy hours, busy a lot of the time. What's it like for a financial planner?
Good question. One thing that I wanted to avoid on the CPA schedule was tax season, because you have like nothing to do. You've got your quarterly filings and things like that throughout the year, but you've got a really heavy tax deadline, and I didn't want that. So I figured financial planning would be a little bit more even, like your life matters just as much in March as it does in October, and we can look forward to your life. And in general, I can schedule that out and have a pretty flexible schedule. I can choose when I schedule my client meetings, so I can come and go a lot throughout the day. That's why I can do things like search and rescue and ski patrol. And if you get hurt on the mountain in the middle of the day, chances are I can run up and come get you.
Keep that in mind.
Please don't. I don't like it when I know people. Please stay safe out there. But that being said, fourth quarter and year end, people get ready for that tax filing deadline, and it makes them care about everything. So all of a sudden, the stock market really matters in October, November, December. And it's beneficial because the stock market's usually going up as people are spending money for Christmas. And it's a good time to have those conversations, but people care about their investments. People are like, oh yeah, the kids are coming together. We should get that estate plan done now. And so that October, November, December I work a lot of hours, but I have a lot of flexibility the rest of the year. And even in that busy season, I can kind of schedule, am I working at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m.? So that's been really nice.
Favorite part of your job? Least favorite part?
The answer is probably the same. Clients are probably my favorite and least favorite. What I loved about corporate accounting was you can look at the financial statements and say, this is what needs to happen to make a change in the organization. When I went to personal financial planning instead of that corporate planning, it's really cool to see it change people's lives. It's really cool to see a line worker come in that saved everything, every penny they've ever made, and they've living off of nothing, and they think that they can never retire, and be able to sit down and be like, no, you've done an amazing job. This is how we can get you to retirement, and see the tears come. Like, that's life changing. But also, like, calls at 11 p.m. at night of like, I'm ready to talk about my taxes. It's like, well, I'm not, so leave me alone. Working with people is so rewarding and so hard. Yeah. Good question. I think that a lot depends on kind of your goals and your why. If your goal is to be in growth mode, and that growth portfolio, probably sooner rather than later, as you're looking for because you're probably doing your industry to get that growth. You're going to be a really good dog groomer, or you're going to be a really good, whatever your thing is. And letting someone else take that kind of financial planning stress off of you of like, okay, you want to be able to retire at 40. So that's going to require, and you want to live on 200,000 a year. That means you need to save 60,000 a year. Now you go figure out how to make lifestyle plus 60,000 a year to get there. If your goal is like, I just want to like have no stress and then grind, and then like kind of when you get to that growth phase is probably when it's important to talk. Or once you start having multiple entities and you get to a part that you're overwhelmed with, like, how do all of these income sources play together? Or multiple properties, you need to start getting an estate plan. Once you have titled real estate, titled assets, you need an estate plan. If you die, it's a lot harder if you have titled assets and no estate plan. So kind of just depends on your growth trajectory. That being said, it's a lot harder to have if you've saved 10 grand, it might be worth it to go talk to an advisor and get ideas and get thoughts, but don't pay someone to take your money when their fee is going to be a larger percentage than you can make on the money. Wait to get a more sizable, get a couple $100,000 before you invest with someone is typically what I see. Yeah.
I just wanted to say you start a couple businesses in college, and I'm curious what that looks like and what those businesses were.
Yeah. While I was still nannying, so I was 18, graduated, started beauty school, started accounting at night, I opened up a flower business. I wanted live flowers at my house. I couldn't pay for them, so I figured I'd have other people pay for them and send them out. I learned through that don't exploit your hobbies, because if you have like a release, I loved flower arranging, I loved things like that, and brides have totally ruined it for me. So at our wedding, there were no flowers, but so like being careful, like exploiting your hobbies. And then we have a livestock long hauling company that my husband and I started. We like to road trip, we like to travel, so getting paid for it, that was kind of something that was fun. We have learned a lot about trucking industry regulation, tax code through that, because that's kind of a tax specific. We have a concrete company, so learning all the construction law, DOPA licensing, all of that's been really good for me. Through that, we actually had an opportunity to figure out the legal system as we got sued, and that was really fun to figure out and learn that. Thankfully, she just didn't like the color of her floor and sued us because she thought it was ugly. So we it was like a case that was easy to win, but it exposed me to the legal system and learning out how all of that works. So just the things that, the lessons of life that get thrown at you as you become the one in charge. And it's also started a realization of like when you own the company, the weight that's on your shoulders, the weight of like, I have employees, and before my family is fed, I need to make sure that all of their families are fed. And that weight is a very different weight than I work for an employer and his job is to make sure my family is paid. And my job is to figure out how much effort I want to put into work so that I can keep my job. It's just two very different. This can feel very confining and restricting, and this can feel very overwhelming. And it's just both sides. And then I have more understanding with my boss. It goes into a lot of more meaningful conversations about compensation and stuff when I know what it takes to have employees.
So besides personal wealth, like say someone wanted to start a business, would Adam's Wealth or, your position, would you guys help them figure out like the payroll, things like that, how to structure their business in that sense, like in the financial side of starting a business?
Your accountant is probably your best fit for that. So I do that quite a bit for friends and family, and you're welcome to reach out and I'm happy to help you with that. But in general, a financial planner is not going to know anything about that. They're going to know what to do once you make the money from your company, and your accountant's going to know how to set it up and what kind of money you make. But having your CPA can kind of help. You have a super fun idea.
And working on a drone photography business like that.
Very cool. Good for you.
You guys have hired a bunch of AIs.
We have hired a bunch of
What is it
guys.
you're looking for when you're interviewing, when you're talking to interns, when you're hiring? I mean, how can students set themselves apart, or what should they be thinking about? What are you guys looking for?
Good question. It's getting more and more competitive to work at Adams. We almost always have a huge stack of resumes. So once you get into an interview, hands down, the most important thing is to be personable. When you get a bunch of finance and accounting majors in there, a lot of times they like stare at their shoes while they talk to you. Make eye contact, be relatable, talk about your life, tell me about your siblings, your friends, be a human. That's a big thing. I think that's something to remember in an interview is they're not there to interrogate you. Yeah, they want to get to know you. And I need something to remember you by. I'm going to talk to 30 people in that day as I'm doing interviews. But if you made me laugh, or if we've got a connection, I'm going to remember you a lot easier than everyone else. As far as resume, the e-money, being e-money certified, that's something that I know stands out to a lot of people on my team. Something like the CEP or CFP, if you'd started those or taken some classes on that route, that's appealing just because that's what we're specifically doing every day. That's a big one. Anything else?
Anything else? Any final questions? A couple side notes. We've always had a tough time accounting and finance for whatever reason. It was hard to do a joint degree. We're working on getting a joint degree we can do. So there's some accountants that don't want to be CPAs, and there's some finance folks that just need some more accounting because of the type of position. So we're doing a dual degree. That's in the process.
That would be so cool.
Yeah. So hopefully by next year, that's in place. Either way, most of you have years until you graduate, so we'll get it figured out by then.
Plug for finance. When I was working at Coke and other corporate jobs accountants get hired more, but finance majors get paid more. So if you're an accountant that goes and takes a finance position, you get paid. Finance gets paid more. So that dual is cool.
So anyway, lots of different skills out there. Look, Erin is a fantastic example of just taking the initiative. She would figure things out. She would do it. Head of the financial planning club, one of the heads of the real estate club while she was here. Always had her hands in lots of it. Got her pilot's license while in school still, or did you not wrap that up quite well?
I did that after.
Just right after. So just took life by the horns, basically, right? Said, look, this is how it's going to work, and just figured it out, and didn't always know exactly how it was going to end up, but was confident that she could figure it out, and literally a fantastic example of just getting involved in doing those things. So if you are interested in the financial planning route, and there's kind of lots of options, right? This has been a good exposure to several of them, but there's lots of different options in the financial planning route. The financial planning club meets, get on their radar, get their emails, get their job posting, internships, etc. And lots of different options there. So it's a growing field, always expanding, new things coming up. FinTech, right? There's a whole bunch of interaction between some of those tech side and robo advisors, and semi-robo advisors, and all kinds of stuff. So
The
anyway.
CFP board website has like mentorship programs that can help you like get into CFP programs and find jobs and talk to others. So you're not just stuck with
Yeah.
my view.
Yeah, and there's small firms. I think kind of the ideal is kind of the Adams, where it's small, it's fee-based, it's, very personable on that sense. But there's Fidelity, there's Schwab. I mean, there's gigantic firms in the same space that are doing, very similar things, sometimes, a different route, but trying to help people with their finances. So lots of different options out there. So questions, can I send them your way?
Please do.
Okay, so I'll post your information on Canvas, and you guys can reach out that way. But thanks so much, Erin.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Certainly. Fantastic.
Thank you. You've got your Joanne's development going. Are you still part of that?
I'm not, no,
You. None of that?
no, after like multiple years of